Hello there again, everybody. Joshua here. Just wanted to do a follow-up to the original introductory video I did, just to flesh out a little more for you who I am, who we are, where we're headed, what has brought us to this point, and what we see as we are moving forward, and what we'd like to accomplish and what we'd like to see transpire. As I've probably elaborated minimally on in my first video, as well as working on this business with my wife, which we hope to be able to get off the ground sooner rather than later, not only because we want to be able to see how well it can shape our 2016, but to see how many people we can benefit and be a blessing to through it, and have that ripple effect type of progress as well. But aside from that, I'm also embarking on my writing endeavors, partly because my wife has really kind of given her full approval and her encouragement to that end, because she said that I'm a good writer and I've got stories inside me that need to be told, and I can't benefit the world with them if they're sitting on my computer hard drive. So I took up her challenge of seeing what I could do with my writing, and I was able to take one of the stories and bring it out to 91,904 words, I believe. And it's one of what's going to be several stories in a series. Now, traditionally, when somebody thinks series, they think same characters going on having different adventures that build on the previous one and blah, blah, blah. I'm using the term series very loosely, and I'll explain. What I mean by series is that it's going to be the same kind of style of writing, but it's going to be different characters, different storylines, and different aspects to it. So, and how I can best explain that is to say that you've heard of historical fiction, I'm sure. Maybe some of you have even gotten into that genre and read some of the books in that genre, and there's a plethora of them, I'm sure. But what I'm doing is I'm going to take that genre and I'm going to try to turn it on its ear just a little. And to say that means that I'm taking the core element of it, which is to have an historical period or characters. I'm going to create fictional characters and events and situations that interact with those real-life characters amidst the framework of that historical event or time period or whatever have you. But what I'm doing by turning it on its ear is that I'm going to take an element that we have been led to believe is this. And I'm going to show you the possibilities of it not being that, but being this. And what I mean by that is quite often they say history is written by the victors, the people in power, the people with money, the people with prestige. And quite often history is written from a bias or a certain person or person's point of view. So what we are passed down, what we are told, is usually somewhat, if not directly influenced by somebody's opinion or bias. And usually those people are people of power, of authority, of, clout. And it's not something that gives us an accurate picture of what has actually transpired. So what I'm doing is, after having watched some documentaries and reading some things, I'm presenting the idea that what we were told is not the only way to look at that story or that individual or those situations, and in fact might even be the wrong way. Because a lot of times the truth of a situation or an event or whatever has been covered up because it would damage certain people's reputation. It would damage certain people's sense of freedom, because they would be jailed if it was found out that they were involved in those particular events that could have been criminal or historically altering or whatever. And so quite often those very people find a way to cover up the truth, suppress it, come up with a fabricated alternate story, and then the history books relay that as the truth. A couple of examples that are stark contrast to the truth. JFK assassination, Lincoln assassination, those are the two biggest, but Roswell, all sorts of things that we've been told one thing, and maybe there's something more to it than what we've been told. My story, first one I've just completed the first draft of, is set in the immediate aftermath of the Civil War. We have a character that is fictional, and the story revolves around him and his family primarily. But they interact with real-life historical figures, they go to real-life places, and they do real-life things. So they are very identifiable as people that could probably have existed in the midst of that whole situation. Now, what I've had to do, because it's historic, I've had to make sure that my facts are correct. I have to make sure that the guns they're using were actually invented at that time and not guns that came out 10, 15, 20 years later. I have to make sure they're not riding the railway, because the railroad did not exist nationally from one coast to the other in 1865. It came about later, in the years following the Civil War. So I had to make sure I was kind of accurate. Well, not kind of accurate, I had to be accurate. So that's where the historical element comes in. But the creative writing, fictional aspect comes in, because I'm creating fictional people and events within that framework. So essentially I'm taking an historical framework, I'm injecting it with people that I've made up, which allows me to exercise my creative muscles, but at the same time I get to exercise my research muscles, which I love, because I get to learn something by researching this stuff and finding out who was this individual, how did they interact with this individual, who was this person's father, brother, mother, whatever, that I need to explain in the context of my story. And so what I've done is create something that I'm proud of, something that I know will need some editing and some work before it's ready for publication. And that's where a business comes in, to help with things like funding my book writing career to get started, as well as being a blessing and a benefit to help other people. And then after I put out a couple of books, it'll start paying for itself. Now the series I'm talking about is, my next book I've started is centered around the Mona Lisa. And there's some prevailing theories about that I'm going to touch on. There's the theory of what happened during the Lincoln assassination and post-Lincoln assassination that take you away from the thought that it was just a crazed lone gunman. JFK was not a crazed lone gunman. Lincoln was not a crazed lone gunman. Obama running the White House and all the grievances he's caused for a lot of people, he's not a lone gunman, so to speak. There's always people behind these individuals who are the face. They're on the forefront, but they are not singularly, solely acting of their own interests by themselves. We are not islands unto ourselves. Even the crazy people are not islands unto themselves. They always have a group of people behind the scenes that are helping them, working with them, manipulating them, using them as a puppet, whatever the case may be. There's always an agenda that we as the public are virtually never privy to. So that's the same with the Lincoln assassination, no different. And my next book is, like I say, about the Mona Lisa and events surrounding that. I've got another book in the works that is centered around the survival of individuals from the latter 1800s that we've been led to believe died, but that history has been kind of shady about, that based on some documentaries I've watched and things I've been reading and discovering. Again, I think there was some false stories told that we've bought because we've been led to believe, because we don't know any better. We're just going on what we're told. The problem with going on what you're told all the time is that you base your belief system, your knowledge of the world, your knowledge of things on other people's, quite often, more often than not, opinions. And it's fine to seek wise counsel. We're commanded to do that. But we're called to do that. That's what a wise person does. They seek counsel. But there's a difference between seeking counsel for every little thing and basing your belief system, your view of things on what everybody else tells you, or seeking counsel when you know those people are wise and knowledgeable in that subject matter, but then using that as a springboard to then go and do some further research yourself to assert what you've been told is true, to verify it, or to refute it, whatever the case may be. My job in writing, much like in my life, is not to answer all the questions for people. It's to present questions that cause them to go off on their own journey to explore, to discover, to reason, to research, so they can come to the conclusion of what the truth is for themselves. And my job is simply point out the truth as I know it, but to cause them enough curiosity that they want to go and affirm that truth for themselves. And so that is what's going to tie all these books together. That's why I call it a series. The fact that it's the same kind of style, historical fiction, with a third element of causing people to kind of go, what if? Thrown in. So that's why these books are going to be series. The one I have now, the third one that I've got going is starting in the 1960s. It's a flashback to 1920s, the main character's father and his growing up and kind of what happened to his father. And then it'll flash back to the present at the end. And so that is the gist of that, and who his father interacts with that are alive in the 1930s when people thought they weren't. So this is again something I don't want to elaborate on too much because I want you to read these books yourself, and then you can discover what it is that I'm touching on. And again, it's not to say that there isn't room for other possibilities, but my research and my reading and watching documentaries has led me to believe that what I'm proposing is more truthful and realistic of what happened, I think, than what we have been spoon-fed. And that's essentially what it is. We have been spoon-fed. Great example in America right now. Obama is spoon-feeding people, and so many people have bought into his stuff at the beginning. That's why they have the kind of guy in the office, a White House presidential office, that they do. Because they bought his lies, and now they're having to deal with the aftermath of it. And that's the sad reality of just believing what you're told without researching and finding out what's the truth behind this person and their claims and what they're saying. And another good example of America today and talking about conspiracy theories and cover-ups and things like that is the gentleman from the U.S. Supreme Court. It was initially said that he died of natural causes. I don't think that's true, because if he was a staunch Roman Catholic and moral upholder, as they claim, and there's certain things that he was supposedly standing up for, that would be more believable why he's suddenly not with us. Then he just died of natural causes, when apparently he was deemed to have a good bill of health in his last physical, from one little thing I read. But regardless, I don't know what the truth is. The media can twist it all sorts of ways. Who knows, ultimately. But if he, in fact, did die of natural causes, that's one thing. But it's convenient that if he was a moral upholder, as he's reputed to be, where even Franklin Graham is acknowledging him and others are acknowledging what he's contributed to America for the last, 25, 30 years or whatever, being on the bench, that there would be justified reason to question his death when all of a sudden he disappears, when he's been waging a stand against all the moral depravities going on. So this is what I'm saying, is that my writing is to not really expose the truth per se, but to present an alternate version of what we've been given as the truth that might be more truthful in itself. So this video is just kind of share a little bit about that, about my writing endeavors. And while that is my main thrust for my writing, and it's going to be for the next long while, I think, I feel like that's my home. That's where I'm supposed to exercise my creative and history-loving muscles, so to speak. But I kind of deviated away from that, and I've started another completely different book because, I don't know, maybe it's inspired by Frozen. I don't know. But it's talking about a fictional group of beings that don't actually exist as far as I know. Can't exist. It doesn't make logical sense for them to exist. But it's more of a children's type storyline. If you kind of take one of the characters from Frozen and do a spin-off of the Frozen story with where he came from, that'll give you a bit of an idea kind of where I'm headed with that. But that's kind of steering me completely away from the historical fiction and going completely into fiction fantasy, whatever. So that's kind of fun to go off on that tangent, but that's kind of a work in progress as well. So I just want to share a little bit about what I'm doing as a writer, because I've got two hats I'm wearing. I'm wearing a writer hat, like professionally speaking. I'm wearing a writer hat, but then I'm also working on the business with my wife, which makes me put on my entrepreneur, self-employed hat, as it were. And I'm learning from my wife primarily on the business side of it, because she's business-minded. She's the Richard Branson of the family. So I'm kind of learning off her. And likewise, where writing is more my strength, hopefully in time I can be able to share that with her. And she has an interest to do some writing, so maybe I can be able to help her where she doesn't feel as confident in the way that she's helping me where I don't feel as confident. But together we are going to be doing something awesome with this business, and it's an opportunity to really grow. And if you cease to want to learn, to discover, to research, to explore, then you have chosen to just exist. And there's enough people walking around this world who just choose to plot about their day and exist and not really challenge themselves. And that's not to slam anybody, because some people are just happy with the status quo, the mediocre, just go to their 9 to 5, do their job, come home, that's it. And yes, we have bills to pay, we have families to support. But my encouragement, my challenge to us all is that we would be willing to rise to the occasion, step out of society's little cookie cutter mold that society puts us in, expects us to stay in, and then gets upset when we choose something else, or when we want something bigger or something better, when our vision cannot fit into the little tiny box that they stuff us into. My encouragement, my challenge to us all is that you'd be willing to step outside that box. You'd be willing to say, you know what, there's more to life than this. You know, like Stephen Curtis Chapman said years and years ago, one of my biggest inspirations, by the way, he said years ago on his 3rd album, More to This Life, he basically put it this way: and there's more to this life, more than living and dying, more than trying to make it through the day, more to this life, more than this life alone can be, and there's more, and this life alone can be. And that's the gist in a nutshell. There's more to life than paying your bills, paying your taxes, taking out your garbage, wiping your child's, backside after changing a nappy. I mean, these are all important things. Don't get me wrong. But I think if we settle for just changing nappies and filling up the formula bottle and taking out the garbage and doing our dishes and, sitting in front of the computer watching, whatever YouTube videos are on there, and that's the extent of our life, we have drastically reduced our purpose to be absolutely fruitless. Our purpose in this life is to benefit others, is to help others. Anybody will tell you that. Eric Worre will tell you that. Richard Branson will tell you that. Anybody who has succeeded in life the way they have has succeeded because they understand that their job is to serve others. You don't have to be a Christian. You don't have to have any religion at all to understand the logic of that. To be a Christian compels you to want to love others and serve them doubly. But the fact of the matter is, we're called to serve. As human beings, we're interrelational. We thrive when others around us are benefiting. We thrive when we're maximizing our potential and achieving heights of excellence. But heights of excellence require you to climb, and climbing requires effort. You can't just coast to the top. It's not like one of those things that older people have where they just sit in their little chair and zoom, they go up the stairs. Life is not like that. You have to actually take those stairs yourself. You can't just sit in the proverbial chair and expect to zoom to the top. It doesn't work that way. So whether it's my writing, my business, my role as a husband, my role as a father, my role as a believer, my role as a neighbor, as a friend, it all comes down to the same one core element: loving others, serving others. If we can get that concept down, imagine how we could change the world. And that's what I want to do in my little way, individually as well as with my wife and with us as a family. I want to change my wife's world. I want to change my son's world so that they can know what it means to be inspired, to be encouraged, to be called into a life of service. And you don't have to join the military to serve. Some are called to join the military. Some are called to fight battles at home. The battles for your family's survival, to pay your bills, to have enough food at the end of the day, to be able to have the clothes that they need, a roof over their head. Sometimes that's more of a war than going off to Afghanistan for some people. So my job is to encourage, to inspire, and to call people to a greater sense of self, a greater sense of what does it mean to really live. If any of you people know the older movie with Dustin Hoffman and Steve McQueen, Papillon, there's this one sequence that I've always remembered that was drilled into my head because my dad's favorite movie was Papillon, so I watched it all the time. One of his favorite movies. King of Kings and others are some of his other favorites. But anyway, Papillon, there's this dream sequence, and the guy is standing for a judge, and the judge slams his gavel down on the desk and says, "I accuse you," he says very voraciously, "I accuse you of a wasted life." Ask yourself, do you want to be one of those people that judgment could apply to? Do you want to be somebody that's laying on your deathbed or moments away from death because you're in a car accident or whatever happens, whatever have you, and you're looking back in your life wishing you'd done something different, something better? You realize that all that you pursued meant nothing, that you only lived for self, that it was not about helping other people. It was all about you. And at the end of the day, there's very little you leave anybody else in the process. The joys of technology. Whoops, sorry. So the point is this. Do you want to impact others? Or are you more concerned about others impacting you and you just receive? Because what you have received, you have a responsibility to give back. It's part of the circle of life. To whom much is given, much is required, they said in Spider-Man. And then that's a core truth of life. If you've been blessed, and almost all of us have, it's your responsibility to take what you've been given and bless others as opportunity allows. Might not be with money. Maybe you don't have a lot of money, but maybe you have skills. Maybe you have talents. Maybe you have the ability to be encouraging to others, to inspire others, to motivate others, to help in very practical, simple ways. Maybe it's helping your landlady take out her garbage, or helping, a neighbor who's having a down and out time because they're up to their eyeballs with stuff they're trying to take care of and their kids are constantly in the way, and you have the opportunity to maybe do some babysitting. Or maybe it's help buy a bag of groceries for somebody is really lacking money and doesn't have a lot in the fridge. It doesn't have to be a big, huge, magnanimous thing that Bill Gates could do. It just needs to be an expression of the heart. So whether it's my writing, my business, my responsibilities, I endeavor to show that heart. My challenge to us all is that we would all have a little more heart and a little less excuse for why we can't love and care for others. And whatever business you're in, you have an opportunity to serve. Doesn't matter what business you might think, I just work in a factory, I don't deal with the public, so doesn't matter. Serve your coworkers, serve your employer, say a nice word, give a smile, do something that helps them to know that they matter, that they're appreciated. You don't know how much that can change somebody's world. You could smile at somebody and they've given up hope. They're going to go home after work and slit their wrists because they don't think anybody cares. But you smile at them and say an encouraging word. That could be the very thing that turns that person's life around, and you may never know it. So my call to us through this video and through these series of videos is to encourage you, to inspire you, to challenge you. I'll tell you a bit about my business, a bit about my writing as it progresses, yes. But my call in this life, I believe, is to encourage, to inspire, to challenge. And I don't mean challenge in terms of challenging authority and bucking the system that is there for our benefit. But I will stand against things that are not right, that injustices, things that are not suitable and helpful to our advancement as human beings, to our rising to the occasion of reaching our potential and maximizing it and exceeding it. But I will not stand against things that are in place for our good. So my point of these videos is to encourage you to call on your humanity, your compassion, to reach out to others, to reach out to yourself, to believe in yourself, to rise to the occasion, whether it's a business you're running or a business you want to run, or you have a dream to do something, you just don't know how to get started. Find people who are already doing it. Ask them how they got started. Find the means to make it happen. You only have one life. Don't waste it because you're waiting for the opportune moment or enough money or to meet the right person, whether it's for a relationship or a business partnership or whatever. You go out there and you make your life happen, because it won't happen if you wait for everybody else to do it for you. And if you're going to a job that you hate, find some other way to support your family by doing something you love. You only have one life to live, and when it's over, it's all said and done, that's it. Steve Jobs was quoted on his deathbed as talking about that very thing, about how, be careful what you do, because what you do matters and life is too short. This is Steve Jobs, the guy who, ran Apple, I think it was. He had all the money in the world and he realized it didn't matter if you didn't have purpose and meaning in what you were doing. So connect with me, send me a Facebook message, drop a message on my YouTube or Twitter or Instagram or whatever. I've got listed on my Facebook there. I would love to hear from you. I'd love to hear your story. I'd love to hear what you're up to, what you're doing, and how I can contribute to it, play a part in it. Help you carve out the life you want to have. I don't have all the money in the world like Zuckerberg has, even though Kanye West thinks he needs to go to Zuckerberg and beg for money. The fact of the matter is, we're not Kanye Wests. Most of us are not dumb enough to get ourselves that much in debt and then go to some billionaire expecting them to bail us out. We're willing to do the hard yards. We just need the tools. We need people believing in us. We need the opportunity. My wife and I have an opportunity. If you're interested, let us know. We'd love to share it with you. If you're a fellow writer, fellow history lover, fellow creative-minded person, connect with me. I'd love to connect with you, learn from you, and collaborate on stuff. Maybe we could write a book together. Who knows? The sky is the limit. Don't be afraid to live because you're waiting till the right time, till you have enough money, till you have the right connections, till you get over your issues, whatever they are. We all have issues. Everybody has issues. Human beings are full of issues. But the people who rise to the occasion versus the people who don't are the people who don't let their issues stop them. Good example, John Nash. If you've ever seen A Beautiful Mind, he got schizophrenia. Lord knows how. He didn't do drugs and fry his brain. I don't think but he came down with schizophrenia. But he said, you know what? Those people that are talking to me that don't actually exist, I have to act like they don't exist. I keep feeding those delusions because I keep talking to them. The minute you stop talking to them, they go away. And he was able to be proof that you can overcome schizophrenia if you have enough willpower to. And he went on to receive the Nobel Peace Prize for economics. He revolutionized economics as we know it because he didn't let his issues get in the way of his potential to succeed and change the world. If John Nash could do it, then virtually any of us have no excuse. So write me, drop me a message. I would love to hear from you. I'm not here to judge. I'm here to love and to work with people, and I would love to work with you. So if anything I've said has touched you, resonated with you, made a difference in even the most minuscule way, I'd love to hear about it. Leave a comment down below, and let's start a dialogue, because I'm here to help change the world. And I hope you are too. And if you are, let me know. Let's change the world together, because two heads are always better than one. So thanks for listening, and tune in next time as I continue to share from my thoughts, my insights, and stuff that it's not about me. It's what I can do to be able to impart whatever I've been given for your benefit, and for the benefit of anybody around you that wants to tune in this video as well, or any of these videos. So please feel free to contact me. Let's communicate. Let's go out there and let's change the world. Thanks a lot for listening. We'll see you next time.